Hello everyone, I'm going to do just a short tutorial to show how you cast this very small pom-pom yarn. As you can see, they're very small pom-poms with just a small space in between. There's only enough space for make one stitch. You can't get two like you can out of the larger ones. And I'm only doing this because I've had one or two emails and even messages, comments on videos, people asking me about how to do this. Actually, most wanting to know how to cast it off. So what I'm going to do is, you need a very thin pair of needles. I prefer doing this with when I'm doing a tutorial with the short needles, but these are quite long zing ones, and they are 275, I think. I'll check the size on them. A 275mm. I have 3mm, which you can use, but the thinner the better. So to cast on, I've casted on one or two stitches, and you take your next space like that, twist it like that, so you get a little loop, and you push the needle in from behind. Exactly the same way as you do it on the way I've shown on the larger pom-poms, but you have two stitches between the pom-poms on those ones, but you can't do two on these ones, they're too short. So you just keep twisting like that and go in behind the stitch when you pick it up, not in front of it, because it'll just fall off. So just keep twisting like that until you have however many number of stitches you want for. And I am just doing this as a tutorial. I'm going to be pulling it out afterwards because I'm not knitting it yet. I am going to make something with it, but not at the moment. So that's just keep twisting and going behind. And that's just a few stitches I've put on to show you how to work this. And it is a little bit difficult when you start the first row because of the way you've had to cast on that. So just a little bit difficult to get the needle in because you have twisted the stitch. And then you just knit with that single strand, if I can get it through without. So that's the first stitch. You may have to force the needle through. It is a little bit, like I'm saying, it's a little bit difficult. I have knitted with this before, but I pulled out what I was doing because I changed my mind about what I was doing with it. So I haven't got any to show what I've actually done with it. So like I'm saying, the thinner your needle to start off with, you can knit with 3mm afterwards. But your cast on row and your row that you're I can get that one through. It's much easier after you get that first row done. That's why I've only put just a few short stitches on to make it easier for me to show you. And I think I'm bending these needles, pushing, because they're so thin, the needles. I'm bending them, pushing them in. There are some that I've cast on using ordinary yarn first, but it means you're going to have that ordinary yarn on at the start of your knitting, which you're not going to be able to take off. Not many to go. I'll be trying to pull the pom-pom down to make the stitch a bit looser. My last stitch now. So that is the first row after the cast on stitches. And now I'll knit another row and show you that is easier once you get past that first row. As you can see, it's a lot easier to get the needle. It was just that first cast on row you had twisted the stitches around, because that was the only way you can cast on using the actual pom-pom yarn. It's fairly easy. You can change to a little bit larger needle if you want, but it doesn't really make any difference for the length of anything, no matter what size needle you're using, the smaller or the larger one, because it only goes down the length of what those bits of yarn are between the pom-poms. So that's how you cast on and how you knit 1 or 2 rows. I will do 1 or 2 rows and come back again. So I have knit 1 or 2 rows just to show, and I'm going to show you what happens if you cast off just using these the way they are, which I saw a video on YouTube where a young lady was showing us how to cast off, and she cast it off that way, but she very quickly ended the video where you couldn't see how it looked at the end because hers was gathered in like that. So I'm going to show you what happens. You knit 1, because you only have 1 stitch in between each pom-pom, and you can't slacken it off any, so when you take it over like that, like that, as you can see there, it is pulling it in. When it's finished, it will be all gathered. It won't be a straight cast off like you should have. These needles are quite long, actually they're even longer than the normal ones I knit with. But I'm not going to do the whole lot because I'm going to have to pull it out. But you can see how it's pulled it in where it should be that wide, and it's pulled it in far too much. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll pull that back to the start again. I'll show you how I would do it. I've never actually cast off before. This was just, I experimented with it to work out how to do it. So I put the stitches back on the needle. Now I'm going to show you, you will need some wool. I am using this colour just so you can see much better what I'm doing. But you will need something to match the colour that you're doing. So you're going to cast off with ordinary wool instead of the pom-pom wool. It's the only way that's possible to cast this off and get it straight. I'll pull some of this wool out because it's a bit in there. That's it. So you will leave a long length because you'll need to sew this in afterwards. You will one stitch and make that stitch very long as what the pom-pom is. And take it over like a normal cast off. Oops, I've lost that stitch. And again, make it long. And slacken each stitch off as you do it. Slacken that stitch that you've just made and take it over. Don't pull it tight afterwards. Forgot to slacken that off. And slacken that stitch up till they're both quite long. Yes, you have to remember to slacken that stitch off every time you've cast it off, like I kept forgetting. And then when you take the next stitch off, slacken that off too before you put the stitch over. And don't tighten it when you go on to the next stitch. And that is the only way I could find to cast off the stitches on this mini pom-pom. As you see, that's quite slack, but you do have to slacken those stitches off so that they, as you can see, the stitch there and the pom-pom is the same length as the pom-pom. That's what you have to do. You have to keep slackening the stitch off as you're going across until it's the same width as the pom-pom. Otherwise you have little short stitches and it'll be all gathered in like that. So if that's helpful to anyone, give a thumbs up and subscribe, and I may show you something else sometime. So bye for now.